Alright, back. Holy crap, I was beat up yesterday. So tired. 7 or 8 hour travel to get to my destination, and then of course staying up late with friends. Graduation the next day and tons of people. Escaping to film down the lake. More socializing, staying up late, getting up early, traveling 8 hours to get home, half of it on gravel roads. My eyes were full of enough of the road. But anyways, I'm back. I got the glass sliding door open so you can hear the leaves outside in the wind a bit. Shouldn't be too annoying. What else? What do I have to share? Is Stephen Greer sincere? I checked out the comment section there. Of course, my luck. First one I see is somebody saying something absolutely outrageous. Trying to put words in my mouth, accusing me of, if you don't agree with me, then I'm going to let everybody have it. Which is, I don't know where that even comes from. My reply was, how did your brain even tell you to type those words? Did you not hear ever take from what you will or leave it? Which we say almost daily here like a broken record. Some people just don't pick it up. But anyway, I think on average most people believe Stephen Greer is sincere. But there's another 6 other people out there too. So the automatic liars for the people that do not accept him as being sincere. What about the group of people that brought up with him? There's going to be a lot of other people who are absolutely convinced that any person speaking publicly today is controlled. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but we are all controlled. On average, aren't we? Here's some thunder out there now. Great, more forest fires. Anyway, I could babble on and on, but I'll stop there. All I can say is get in tune with your sixth sense, get in tune with your natural instincts, your gut intuition, and go with it, and do not go anywhere else but with it when it comes to life, period. Don't jump on bandwagons. Look into everything you can yourself first. Just don't jump on bandwagons, okay? Live independent and intelligent. Alright, what can we talk about real quick? New news. Ran an old friend, current logger. Been logging quite a while now. Had a little BS session today. And I said, fly it out. God, I got gravel cut out of my eyes. Said to fly it out. Oh, he said he was working above in the Mint Lake, Gracie Lake area. I'm like, uh-oh, Sasquatch zone, seen any yet? And he goes, no, not there, but him and another guy were on Nootka Island. Google it, Nootka Island. I forget if he said they're working or hunting. Either way, he said they got out of the truck. There in the snow was a fresh, human-like barefoot print. And he said, I'm like, what? And he said, he goes, I looked for claws everywhere. There's no way it was a bear. And he says, and it wasn't a huge one. He said it was only a few inches larger than his foot. And I'm sure he's probably a size 11, 10 and a half anyway. And the other guy said, come here, take a look at this. The other guy took a look at the print and said, I'm getting the F out of here, turned around and dove in the truck. Did not want to go down there. I said, so there's more prints? He goes, oh yeah. So you can see him going all the way down the snow and into the timber block that they were going to go into. And they aborted because the other guy was shitting himself and wanted to get the hell out of there now. So there you go. Nootka Island. Another one. And another, and another, and another. Right? Now, I received an email from somebody who we've all looked forward to hearing from in the past, because I had this little odd thing. I'd received an email from this man over the course of months. I kept receiving the same email. And then I'd already shared it. And I'd receive it again a month later, then a couple weeks later, then a month later, same one. Then finally I received it again the other day, and I finally replied to him like, hey man, you've sent me this like 6 or 7 times. What's up? Am I missing something? And then he just replied back and he said, I didn't send it. He's had something similar and odd happen with his inbox in the past. It's kind of weird, right? But anyways, he did send me a very lengthy one, which I'm going to share right now. And this is from Mr. Ash's Diaries. Knowledge from the Elders. Cautionary warnings and some star knowledge. It's the title of this email. Mr. Ash, First Nations Elder. Listen to this. Good day, good sir. Personally, this past winter has been an extraordinary experience for me. I truly feel honored. I spent most of the month of February up in the UP of Michigan and a week-long trip to Minnesota with Nookamus and Miss D. with Newcomis community listening and taking in the sacred stories that can only be told while there's snow on the ground. How interesting is that? Only while there's snow on the ground. I'm going to close that door. The wind might be a little too annoying, so it might come across as a hiss on the mic. Alright, it's a little better. The time for telling these stories are the long winter nights. These are not just, quote, stories, end quote. They are the account of the Ojibwe, Odawa, and the Podawato, Potawatomi, from the time they lived on the east coast of America and Canada, their original homeland. Also, Miss D told me the stories of the Naheyawak, phonetically written, or known today as the Cree. The word Cree comes from the French word Christonox, or Cree for short. That word came from a misinterpretation by the French of Christian, which the Naheyawak pronounced Chrétien. Elders, medicine people, and holy people came from as far away as Saskatchewan, and two from Newfoundland. Wow. Newcomis had relatives from Ontario and Quebec. Come and share star knowledge and origins of the Ojibwe. For many generations, it was not safe for the Ojibwe to tell their true original origin story due to, well, the church. The first French missionaries didn't like the fact that the Ojibwe would tell of how they came from the stars. And many Ojibwe and other tribal members were actually killed for telling their origin. If it went against the Christian doctrine, well, the missionaries believed it was nothing more than a blasphemy or evil. The British missionaries were the worst. They forbid any Anishinaabe from speaking about it in their presence. More on that later. Yeah, they were filthy bastards, weren't they? And they're not too far off from that today. The government anyway, as they are definitely a party of war currently in the world. After listening to all the stories and needing Miss D and some of Newcomis' family to translate for me, I now know why Mr. Ash wrote these diaries in multiple dialects. It was to keep the information safe from someone besides an Anishinaabe or me from misinterpreting the true message he was conveying. He knew, as stubborn as I am, I would put the time in to actually learn every meaning of every word and every phrase. When I was a boy, Mr. Ash took me fishing on the river. We used a traditional Ojibwe jigging stick instead of a fishing pole. My first thought at age 6 when I saw the jigging stick was, how are we going to catch fish with this? Basically, it's a 2.5 foot long hardwood stick with small dowels bored into the stick about a foot apart. The lures we used were made of wood and either thin stone or shell fins, and had a hook attached at the rear of the lure. Some lures were large, maybe 10 inches long, and some were as small as 1 inch, with the beaks of robins or grouse beaks attached on the 4 corners of the lure so they would chatter as the lure was pulled through the water. The beaks of the robin and the grosbeak, Grosbeak, are bright in color. Some were painted, but most were all natural. I couldn't tell you how many trout we caught with these lures over the years. That is frickin' cool as F. Well, this day at the river, using the jigging stick for the first time, it took a bit to get used to. I cast and pull in over and over. Hours went by and no trout. Mr. Ash kept encouraging me, telling me if it was easy it would be called catching and not fishing. We spent most of the day there by the river. Mr. Ash really didn't say much, but kept encouraging me. Finally, about dinner time, he told me it was time to pack it up. We drove back to the cabin. When we pulled in, my dad was splitting firewood. We got out of Mr. Ash's 68 International Scout, and my dad and Mr. Ash smiled at each other, and Dad asked, how did it go? Mr. Ash began to laugh, told my dad, you have to give the boy more credit. He spent the entire day using this. He showed Dad the jigging stick, casting and casting again into the part of the river where there were no trout. They both began to laugh, and then it hit me. I was duped. Actually, I was taught. It was a lesson in patience. Some may say insanity. We all know the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. Mr. Ash gave me a shoulder hug and told me I had to see just how stubborn you truly are. I'll take you tomorrow to where the trout are, and there we'll catch some fish. I stood there feeling like the village idiot when my dad said, "Buddy, lessons in life come in all forms. You learned one of those today." I never forgot that. The next day, on a different part of the river, with the same gear, we caught 7 trout in a matter of 3 hours. That day at the river was completely different than the day before. Mr. Ash pointed out plants with edible roots and leaves that we gathered and made an impromptu salad in a bucket hat. And no, folks, he wasn't wearing it. To this day, I keep a bucket hat as a part of my hunting gear for just such an occasion. He taught me to listen to the river, to hear the changes in the flow of the water. They were subtle, but I slowly understood what he meant. The sound of the river would change from time to time as the water passed by us. I asked, why listen to the river? And he told me, the faster the water, the less the fish have to swim. I had no idea what he meant at 6 years old, but as I grew older I understood. In fast-moving water, fish are propelled by the current and use less energy. It's at this time the fish rest, or in other words, not work as hard. This is when the fishing is good. Instead of using all their energy to move in a direction they are making their way to, they will stay in one place for a time building energy. At this time is when they are more likely to bite. I've noticed in steelhead videos the water is moving at a pretty good clip, and the underwater camera shows the steelhead undulating, hanging out at the bottom of the river. They know the river is doing all the work for them. Now, when a juicy lure moves by in front of them, dinner is served. The point of these lessons, as I now know, was for him to test just how far I would go to learn, understanding. We can learn about anything, but until we understand it, we'll never have the knowledge of what it actually means. Once a piece of information is understood, it becomes a fact. Once a fact is proven, it becomes knowledge. The problem today is many have misconstrued education with knowledge. You can have all the education in the world and still be as bright as a 3-watt light bulb in a power outage. Sadly very common, isn't it? It all depends on whose education you're following. It's a sad day in this world where young students can't ask the why to their teachers without the fear of being suspended from school. It's a huge red flag, right? It just happened, folks. Not only here in the States, but also in Canada. If you want to be shocked and pissed off, Google it. Children as young as elementary school have been sent home and told to think about what you said, then return to school to give an apology to the so-called teacher. This happens in universities all the time. God forbid if you go against the curriculum. And I did. I didn't earn my master's degree, like that matters, until I was 41. I was the old guy on campus, and my professors didn't know how to handle someone that would question their facts and prove them wrong. I became a good friend of the dean. I can truly say it was my dad and Mr. Ash that caused me to always go that extra mile to gain understanding and, inevitably, knowledge. This may be the reason Mr. Ash left me these diaries. Also, during the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the young people of the tribes had gotten away from listening to their elders. Many went on their own path of learning. Some came back. It's these today that are now teaching the younger generations the old ways and making them understand what it means to be First Nations. Their hardships some endured have become a flame that is now spreading like wildfire through the tribes. I'll get to hardships later, and it may piss you off, but it must be learned and taught so it never happens again. Today I realized why Mr. Ash wrote the fashion he did. It's a journey of more understanding and knowledge. The dialects of the Ojibwe, Odawa, Potawatomi, and Nehiyawak are like visiting Bangor, Maine one day and British Columbia the next, then southern Louisiana the next, then Newfoundland the next day. All speak English, but the dialect, accent, word structure, and punctuation are completely different. In these diaries, Mr. Ash has taken me back to when I was 6 years old, fishing in a place where there's no fish. I had to learn that lesson to be where I am now. There's numerous pages he wrote about the interactions with the star people, the Wendigo, and like before, I will just use the letter W when referring to this evil being. Right, I remember that. You're not supposed to say that name. What is 3 times in a row cause you bad luck or something? Sorry, one more time. And like before, I'll just use the letter W when referring to this evil being. The little people, the others, evil beings that are known to the First Nations and seldom spoke about. Many are labeled dogmen and sabe. These interactions happened between him, members of his community, friends, and even my dad. He wrote about the time my dad was deer hunting back in '73 on our property, back in an area we call the swamp. Why? Because it's a swamp. This is an area where the mosquitoes have runway lights and landing gear in the summer and early fall. Today I stayed away from that area. As far as I'm concerned, it belongs to them. I heard this account from my dad when I was 14 years old, the year I earned my hunter's safety card from the Department of Natural Resources, the DNR. I was beyond stoked to finally place my own tag on a deer. In September of that year, Dad had taken me out into an area where he had harvested some huge bucks as they came through from the National Forest, through the swamp and onto the property. He guided me to a large white pine. Its boughs covered the ground under it and told me to tuck myself back into it and watch the area to my 2 o'clock position. That was the direction of the swamp. As we walked back to the cabin, Dad said, "Oh yeah, don't be surprised if you're not alone." I thought, what? Then he told me what happened here in '73. It was still dark when he made his way to this area, and when he arrived, he sat down, tucked into a pine. He poured a cup of coffee from his huge green thermos with a metal lid that served as a cup, and would dissolve the skin from your fingertips. One more time. From his huge green thermos with a metal lid that served as a cup and would dissolve your skin from your fingertips as you drank. Settled in and listened to the woods. The birds hadn't woke up. He could hear movement to his right and he knew it was a deer. The wind was in his face that morning, blowing his scent away from what he made out to be a doe. She walked 10 feet in front of him and kept going. Excuse me. In a half hour, the sky began turning dawn blue. He heard movement to his left, then it stopped. Then he heard movement to his right. It was another doe. Dad thought the movement to his left had to be another doe and waited for first light. He began to hear the sound of acorns falling around him. There was 2 oak trees near him, one to his left and one behind him. He didn't think about it and continued to wait. The sky was brighter as the sun came up, and Dad looked up and didn't see any limbs of the oak tree over him. The acorns were still falling. There's a clearing on to his left where he could watch the deer trail that led to the back of the property, but this time he couldn't make out anything down the path. He thought maybe a tree had fallen. The acorns kept coming. He was now getting pissed. The acorns kept coming. He then heard what he described as a deep, guttural giggle. He thought now someone was out there messing with him. For someone to be in our land during hunting season is about as smart as licking a lightning rod during a thunderstorm. Dad, as quietly and sternly as he could, said, "Who's out there?" He heard the giggle again. It was now he heard a whistle. It was from a bird. The dark area in the deer trail stood up. It was about 6.5 tall, turned and disappeared behind the pines. It's at this time during our conversation I proclaimed, "You want me to hunt there?" He continued about 30 seconds later, he heard a scream that reverberated through the woods and him. That's thunder. That's not good. We've got enough forest fires here right now. Then he heard another scream, but this one was higher pitched. He was now standing looking in every direction. He saw nothing. He now was pissed. He yelled, "You son of a bitch, you ruined this morning." There was nothing left to do but head back to the cabin. He thought there wasn't a deer coming through there the rest of the day. I asked if he saw anything walking back to the cabin. He said, "No, but I heard what sounded like a massive smack, then another scream." Dad began to chuckle and said to me, "I think someone got their ass beat." That afternoon, Mr. Ash had come by to ask about the hunt. Dad recounted about the morning and the SOB that ruined it. Mr. Ash said that he had seen the young one digging up his sugar beets. When Dad heard the scream and later the smack, it was likely the adult scolding the young one. The young ones are mischievous. They'll throw acorns, sticks, rocks, basically anything they can pick up. There's a difference between a young one throwing a stick and an adult. Velocity and distance and accuracy. If they wanted to pelt you, they could do it with the accuracy of a sniper. Mr. Ash heard that scream and would hear it a couple times that year. Over the years, he heard it many times. Well, Dad didn't want to hear it again, especially while he was hunting. Mr. Ash told him to take an offering of tobacco and raise it up and tell the Sabe, if you want to hunt in peace. Tell the Sabe you want to hunt in peace. When giving the offering of tobacco, you don't have to yell, just speak in a normal tone of voice. They will hear you. They will know your intentions. Dad, on the other hand, wanted to go out and cuss that little bastard out, his words, up one side and down the other. But Mr. Ash's wisdom won, and he knew what he had to do. That evening, Dad went back to that spot with a tobacco bundle. He held it up and told them he just wanted to hunt in peace. He told them he would leave the gut sack and the liver for them. Later that evening, about half an hour before sundown, Dad harvested an 8-point buck that dressed out a respectable 202 pounds. He left the gut sack and the liver as promised. The next morning he went back and they were gone. No drag marks, no prints, and no sign of other scavengers partaking of the entrails. The only way they were taken from that spot was to be carried off. Dad looked around the area and only found 2 pine trees with their tops snapped about 10 feet from the ground. He knew who took the entrails now, and it wasn't an 800-pound squirrel. I still hunted that area even after Dad recalled his encounter. It's like he said, it's their land that we just happen to own. I harvested my deer on Saturday, October 6, 1984. A 3-year-old 6-pointer, 191 pounds. Side note, up here every hunter keeps a yearly hunting journal. We record the day, time, temperature, and vitals of the harvest. How many points and pounds dressed in the area you hunt. Speaking with some of the new generation of deer hunters, their idea of a journal is taking a picture and posting it on social media. That's fine, but just remember, computers crash. Pen and paper don't. Growing up knowing about these people was a blessing and a curse. Yes, they're here, but if I told anyone about them, I would be labeled a kook. Mr. Ash helped me to put all that to rest. He simply told me that not all are ready to know the truth, and they would learn in due time, and when that time comes, the world will know what the Anishinaabe have known for centuries. I remember I said to him, "But will they listen?" He laughed and said, "You can teach a fool, but that doesn't stop them from being an idiot." Wise men, wise words. Today, many within the First Nations believe it's time for the world to begin to listen and learn. For eons, their teachings have been either called myth, folklore, superstition, or just downright fairy tales. Many are now waking up. Sadly, there are many that will believe the truth because... Oh, that thunder is not a good thing. Sorry. Sadly, there are many that will believe the truth because they have to see them for myself, or it's nothing more than an old wives' tale. Remember, folks, these are the same people that would swear up and down that UFOs don't exist, and all we're seeing are military aircraft at night on maneuvers. Suddenly, a few years ago, the U.S. government released U.S. Navy aircraft footage of fighters tracking a UFO on radar and with the use of night vision. Now. It was now. Since the government told the world that UFOs do exist, now everyone is no longer a crackpot. Isn't that brutal? All because the government admitted it. All because the government admitted, oh, it's okay now to talk about them, we give you permission. Right? Folks, never trust a governing body of any kind to help you, and never take any statements from them as truth, no matter where you call home. We don't need authoritative permission to know what we have encountered. Plus, for the simple fact, there are no authorities or experts when it comes to these people, with the exception of the indigenous peoples of this planet. The three Anishinaabe tribes have always had very similar beliefs that 1. Spirits are more powerful than people. 2. The earth belongs to everyone. 3. No man can tell another man how to live their lives. Isn't that just getting erased by the day in so-called modern times? Folks, we don't need someone telling us what we have experienced. Have you ever noticed the so-called authorities have never had an encounter with these people yet? Due to the fact they have earned a degree and now display letters behind their name, they have the final say of a fact that we have experienced, yet they have never experienced. Folks, tell those individuals to kick rocks or any expletive of your choice. Oh, it shook the window. So did that one. Oh man, I hope it's not lighting up the forest. Mr. Ash wrote of a time back in the fall of '67 when a group of people who told the community around the Hiawatha National Forest they were there to take photos for National Geographic. The community soon learned these people were actually from the Smithsonian Institute. They were digging into the mounds along the waterways and putting up large tarp blinds so no one could view their activities. There were times when some of the locals tried to get a look at the activity and were removed by the masked men in coveralls. Those taken away were asked multiple times what they had seen and were threatened to be jailed if the masked men learned they lied to them. I spoke to an Anishinaabe man who was 14 years old at the time. He remembers everyone being afraid a week after, as he called them the government people came to the area. Stories of them taking away artifacts dug up by the group began to circulate around the communities. That, needless to say, made many of the Anishinaabe pissed. The community also knew if they tried to confront this group, there's a high probability they would be arrested. Some of the men gathered together and went into full hunting mode. God, I love it. I love it when I hear those words. They exerted themselves around the area in camouflage and went to observe the digging. What they described as an excavation and exhumation of a grave. A few of the men witnessed what they described as a giant body laid onto the flatbed truck. It was a skeleton covered in dirt, covered by a massive black tarp. The skeleton was loaded onto this truck around 3 o'clock in the morning. The truck was escorted out by a dark four-door car and followed by a dark bread truck. The Anishinaabe men were now becoming frightened. They stayed undercover until the majority of the digging group left around 5 a.m. They slowly made their way from the dig site and to the truck they had concealed about 1.5 miles into the woods. At one time, the men thought they had been discovered when a dog that was with the dig crew began to bark. Flashlights were pointed in their direction. But the Great Spirit was with them. Also standing near where the men were concealed was a small group of deer. The dig crew told the dog to be quiet and went back to covering the hole. The next day, the men spoke to an elder about what they saw the night before. The elder was extremely worried. What the men described was the desecration of a grave of one of the ancient ones. Side note to the Anishinaabe, the ancient ones were the Sabe that were here before the white man came to this country. Till this day, there are mounds across the continent the First Nations consider and keep the area sacred. It is also said these mounds are guarded by the little people. In the old accounts of the Ancient Ones. They are described as being more than 12 feet tall and as wide as a buffalo is long. Mr. Ash went on to explain, the Ancient Ones met the Anishinaabe when they were forced to leave their homeland near the Great Water, the east coast of northern New England and Canada, the Atlantic Ocean. The Anishinaabe were searching for the land where food grows in the water. The food that grows in the water is the wild rice that grows around the west end of Lake Superior and surrounding waterways and lakes. The Ojibwe from the coast met the Nehiyawak, the Cree, during this journey. They soon considered themselves all relatives, and the Cree assisted the Ojibwe on their journey. The Cree told the Ojibwe of an ancient tribe of people that lived along the north shores of what we now call Lake Huron and what is the upper peninsula of Michigan. They said they were a large race of people, and there were many of them in the area. They told the Ojibwe to be humble to them, and they would help them on their journey. It's been handed down for generations of the meeting between the Anishinaabe, and the Ancient Ones. The Ancient Ones spoke a language to the Anishinaabe. The Anishinaabe did not understand, and at first the meetings between the two were tense. It was said it would take 3 to 4 Anishinaabe men to standing on each other's shoulders to look at the big man's eyes. Soon, a way communication was made. Mr. Ash did not elaborate what that communication was. And the Ancient Ones led the Ojibwe to an area near what today is the Taquamenan River. Taquamenan River. It was from there others would help the Ojibwe. They were making their way to the place where the food grows on the water. The land is now Minnesota. Many Anishinaabe settled around Lake Michigan and Lake Huron. They too were helped by the Ancient Ones. But when the white men came, French and the British, the Ancient Ones did not like what they saw from these people and were rarely seen again. Side note, there are accounts from the French priests that came to this area of Michigan and Canada that wrote about the Anishinaabe, telling them how they were helped by giants. These writings can be found in France today, but from what I've determined in researching these writings, it nearly takes an act of God to view them, no pun intended. There are those who have seen them and written about them, mostly academics from Britain. For those that like an literary archaeological adventure, look into it for yourself. I'll feel better knowing someone besides me wanted to pull their hair out. Now, the question still stands. What was taken from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan? It wasn't just one skeleton that was found. Some accounts say that 3 to 4 were dug up and trucked away. When the elder learned of the first skeleton being taken away, he was worried. Worried his community would be persecuted by the Sabe from taking away their ancestor. When it was later learned that there were 3 or 4 taken, a ceremony was held to ask the Great Spirit to let Sabe understand the Anishinaabe had nothing to do with the desecration of the Ancient Ones' graves. After the ceremony, all seemed fine. Once the, quote, government men, end quote, had left nearly a month after they arrived, the Anishinaabe men went back to that area where they were digging. They found fresh new mounds of dirt, not covered with grass. One of the mounds had a hand depressed into the dirt, more than 4 inches, that was said to be 10 inches across the palm, and from the middle finger to the base of the palm, 14¼ inches long. Once the men saw this, they left that area and didn't go back. These mounds can still be seen today along 10 Mile Creek in the Hiawatha. I ask you all, if you do go, treat them as though you were standing next to a loved one's grave. Plus, we all know up here, someone besides you could be there watching. Contacting the Smithsonian about this event, was as though I called the funny farm and tried to book a weekend stay. I was transferred twice, and once I had someone on the line, I was laughed at. I let them laugh. I kept asking questions like, do you have the Georgian giants that the native peoples of the region knew about? Is it true you have the bones from the Loch Love Cave? I kept firing off these questions. The man still laughed, and finally I told him, thank you. His laughter, and not saying a word about any of the questions, answered all of mine. Before I hung up the phone, I politely told him, the truth is no longer easy to hide. People are learning more and more every day, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Just before I clicked off, I put a nail in the coffin. I asked, you all have that rope that Jeffrey Epstein hung himself with too? No? Oh, I guess you have gone through the archives yet. Then I hung up the phone. Now, before anyone starts anything, now they have your phone number and name, etc., etc. No, they don't. They have the number of a cheap flip phone I bought at a drugstore, and I didn't give them my real name. I've dealt with these government hacks around my property and know exactly how to treat them. Yes, they know who I am, but I can guarantee they don't know what I know. If they do, well, that means I caught them. Folks, ask yourselves the question, quote, why not tell the people of this country what and who resides in our woods and forests? Every country in the world that has a population of people like Sabe, Sasquatch, etc., etc., is thoroughly open about it and commends their citizens for coming forth with information. Why not here? I wonder if it has to do with another passage in Mr. Ash's Diaries. He wrote of a large group of soldiers in vehicles with markings from Camp Grayling back in the 1970 combing through the woods near his cousin's home near Rudyard, Michigan. The men were cordial and professional to everyone they came in contact with, but made it clear that folks needed to stay out of the woods till their maneuver was complete. Maneuver? What kind of maneuver? The diary passage goes on that the soldiers were seen following power lines. There have been encounters with the Sabe in the area for more than a century. One young boy saw the soldiers speaking to a Sabe. Within a second or two, the Sabe looked directly at the boy. He was 75 yards away, but the Sabe knew he was there. The soldiers gave chase to the boy, but they didn't catch him. Side note, folks, you want to try your skill in the woods? Play hide and seek with the First Nations. Play hide and seek with First Nations children. You'll have an easier time finding Jimmy Hoffa than finding them. The soldiers were in the area for 2 days. They all left together and didn't leave anything behind. Folks, if you're waiting for your government to tell you the Sabe are real, there's an old saying, quote, hope in one hand and crap in the other and see which fills up faster, end quote. Starting to piss rain out there. You can probably hear it. Hopefully if that thunder and lightning lit up some woods, the rain's going to counter it. There are many pages in these diaries that refer to the difference between us and the Sabe. One being, quote, our spirits are on a different level from each other, end quote. This one I had Newcomus explain to me. Now, for our quantum physics folks, and those who work in electrical engineering, you may elaborate better than I can. The, quote, spirit, end quote, which Mr. Ash is writing about is our electromagnetic field that each of us generates. It's this field that connects to our nervous system and acts like an early warning system. For some, it's not very strong, and for others, they can make a compass spin, being near them. I'll come back to that too. Sabe is flesh and spirit with capabilities we have either never had or forgot how to use. My money is on the latter. Mine too. Mr. Ash spoke the times he had a face-to-face encounter with the Sabe and afterwards had a pounding headache. Now here's where the electrical engineers can elaborate. How many of you, years ago, walked through a power line cut through the woods? 20 years ago, if you did, you probably heard the sound compared to a million bees flying overhead. The power lines would hum vigorously. They still do. I was just under some, and I got a story about that later. The power lines would hum vigorously. Why? The insulators weren't as well made as they are today. Now today, you can walk under a power line and barely hear the hum. It's there, just not prominent. Many line works back then carried a bottle of aspirin with them and chewed like candy from the headaches some, not all, would receive from the electromagnetic field generated around the power lines. These electromagnetic fields can cause pain, discomfort, the feelings of dread, and impending doom for some. Wow. They've been known to cause hair loss and mess with our nervous system. Many old homes have subpar wiring due to not being up to code. Copper wire through pipe or a poor-made conduit will create what electricians call a fear cage. It's usually a junction box with several lines coming together that creates an extremely high electromagnetic field. It can cause you to hallucinate. Now, as far as our spirit being different, Mr. Ash wrote, "The medicine Sabe gave me felt like a river stone was placed on my head. My head hurt for a few days. I'm not upset. Our spirits are at different frequencies. Though I did understand his message, it was hard for my spirit to carry his medicine." And many speak of the pressure they felt They felt when they're near these people. There's an easy way to learn if you're near a high magnetic field. A simple compass. I wear a small pin-on compass on my coat and carry a Boy Scout compass in my pocket every time I'm in the woods. I have felt that pressure. I've said out loud, quote, "I know you're here. I can't understand you. If I'm not supposed to be here, take this pressure away from me." The pressure stopped once. The second time it happened, the pressure was greater. I just said, okay, I'll go another way. As I went back the way I came, about 50 feet from the spot I felt that pressure, it was gone. The first time I felt that pressure, I didn't check my compass. I just got out of there. The second time on my way back, I checked my compass. It was wobbling around like a drunk after a bender. As soon as I no longer felt that pressure, I had the correct heading again. I reached out to a native friend who told me I should carry an electromagnetic field detector as part of my kit. Then again, this is the same friend that told me to carry a Geiger counter too. I've spoken to several folks that measured odd readings on Geiger counters in the middle of nowhere. Here's the problem I have with a Geiger counter in northern Michigan. There's a ton of quartz, copper, and iron ore everywhere that can hold a higher than normal radiation reading. But if you're in the deep woods and a Geiger counter pings on a tree at a higher than normal radiation levels, well, now you have my attention. There's so many accounts of Sabe running into a tree and disappearing. Mr. Ash wrote about it happening in front of him when he was warned of the Star People's return. Mr. Ash wrote of an encounter his cousin had back in '62. His cousin was squirrel hunting north of Baldwin, Michigan. Side note, this entire area has had Sabe sightings dating back to over 100 years. Power just went out. From Baldwin to Luther to Reed City up to Cadillac, Michigan. You can draw a triangle of all the sightings. Some of the encounters weren't pleasant either. Near the small town of Luther, Michigan, a hunter had his cabin beaten to the ground back in the 70s. The DNR wrote it up as a nuisance bear encounter. Bullshit. We have black bears here, but not one is big enough to grab the gable of a cabin that's 12.5 feet high and pull it to the ground. The cabin was pulled from the top down. That's no bear. Mr. Ash wrote, Tom had shot 3 squirrels before midday. About 50 yards from the last one he shot, he saw a nice fat gray squirrel on a tree limb about 15 feet up the tree. He began to feel uneasy. He knew he was being watched. He saw nothing. From behind a grove of pine trees came a dark, huge figure running toward the tree where the squirrel sat on the limb. The figure ran into the tree and disappeared. He described the figure's head being 5 feet under the limb the squirrel sat on. When the figure entered the tree, there was a loud crack, and then a flash of violet/red light. He was terrified of what he saw. Plus the squirrel was gone. Behind him down the path was another crack. Then Tom had enough. Not understanding this medicine, he went back to his car. This was the first time Tom had been close to what he later would say was a sabe. The second time was in '65 near Iron Mountain, Michigan, while bow hunting. Mr. Ash wrote, Tom was hunting with Lon and Paul, more cousins of Mr. Ash, near Paul's home on Iron Mountain. Tom was about 100 yards down the line from Lon and Paul in a grove of pines. He heard a sound to his right and saw a doe come running as fast as she could past him. Then he saw a sabe, at least 9 feet tall. He used the tree stand near the path the doe ran as a measuring point that was 12 feet off the ground. It ran on all fours till it saw Tom. He stood up and gave him a scream that caused him to mess himself. Tom placed an arrow on his bowstring and sabe grabbed the tree next to the one the tree stand was in, about 10 feet up, and broke it off. Sabe swung it back and forth and screamed again. Lon and Paul heard the scream and came running down. They stopped behind Tom as the sabe threw the top of the tree like a hockey stick. Side note, I asked Miss D if she knew what that meant. She basically showed me a sidearm. I think you meant she basically showed me a sidearm throw. The sabe screamed one last time, causing Paul to wet himself and run toward the direction of the doe. As the three of them gathered themselves and tried to understand what they just saw, another crack was heard behind them. They turned to see a sabe staring at them, but something about this one was different. Lon said aloud, "Okay, we'll go." The sabe, who was as tall or taller than the others, had a round head like a man and a face of an elder. It turned, and 3 steps later was out of sight. Tom and Paul asked Lon, "What did you say?" Jeff asks, "Didn't you hear him?" The two said no. He said, "He's not one of them and he'll make sure we leave safely." Tom and Paul heard nothing, but Lon said, "Okay, we'll go." Then made their way back to Paul's car. Paul wouldn't let Tom get it till he cleaned himself up. Oh, I guess you meant Paul wouldn't let Tom get in till he cleaned himself up. No doubt. Paul told Tom, "You smell worse than he," the sabe did. When they returned to Paul's home, they called my father. I am BAABAA, and told him what happened. He told them to stay away from those woods for now. The sabe will deal with the other. The other may be from another people, or it could not be a sabe at all. You'll know when it's time to go back. You'll just know. About a week before New Year's Day, there was what has been described by many in that area, roars and screams, and the sound of a dozen bulldozers moving through the woods that had never been heard before. 2 weeks later, Paul found 3 cardinal feathers on his back porch step. He took that as a sign that the other was gone. After that encounter, no one in the area had a sighting of that particular sabe, if it was a sabe. But the large, round-headed, elder-looking sabe was seen for years. Note, the cardinal is a sacred bird of the First Nations. Its feathers are said to hold great medicine and are a sign of devotion and love. The cardinal mates for life, and its feathers are a symbol of 2 souls becoming one, i.e. to become family. Man, it sounds nasty out there. Pouring rain and thunder. I hope it just keeps pouring rain. There are many incidents in these diaries that speak of seeing a violet/reddish light preceding a sighting, or as the sabe has disappeared in front of someone, along with a bright blue ball of light. It is pouring. One of the warnings Mr. Ash wrote about pertained to the Wendigo. Uh-oh, that's twice. From now on, only referred to as the W. For the folks that don't know, just saying that word can cause a W to find you. Excuse me. It is never said 3 times, and never when the sun goes down, Mr. Ash wrote. So much needs to be said of the spirits in the world, not only in the forest, woodlands, and waters. These spirits are dangerous to us all and can take many forms. One can be anything it wants to be. They have been mistaken as Sabe, taking their form. They have been seen as very large black wolves with what is being called an evil head. These evil spirits are known to walk on 2 legs or 4. They are known for their terrorizing shrieks and screams that become a roaring growl. These evil spirits are said to give no warning of their presence until they are upon their victim. There are very few accounts for those who have witnessed this being and have gotten away. In a short span of time, have gone mad, and many have taken their life from the mental torment they endured. These spirits are said to smell like death. The smell is compared to a rotting corpse. Now, in comparison to the Sabe odor has been described as a wet dog that rolled on the corpse of a dead deer, inside an outhouse with bad human body odor. The W is known as the most dangerous spirit in the woods. There are very few accounts of meeting these beings simply due to their ability to appear as whatever they want to be. Descriptions over the years of a large, evil, in appearance, wolf, to having the body of a man, the head of a deer with teeth like a mountain lion, hands that resemble claws, and numerous accounts of their tracks range from feet like a wolf but elongated to human-like feet with long toenails resembling bear claws. It's said these beings can look into your mind and find your worst fear and use it against you. Unlike the Sabe that can and will adopt you, the W marks you. A mark can be removed by a medicine or holy man. Being adopted can't. Think of it this way. Being spiritual adopted is when one soul is combined into multiple souls. Many would call this a family. Being marked is the same as someone placing a GPS locator on your spirit with the ability to find you at any time with the one goal in mind. Power's back on. To find you and torment you beyond your worst nightmare. This evil they possess has the ability to control your mind and body. Mr. Ash wrote of a man who was found back in the 50s. They got up from his family's dinner table, walked out to the door into the forest, and wandered for days before he was found deceased by the riverbank under a bristly locust bush. His wife called the sheriff's department and told them her husband had been taken over by the W and left the house barefooted, and she called them to help find him before he succumbed to the W's torment. Though it wasn't written, this is back in the 1950s. Law enforcement wasn't the most professional when it came to Native affairs. The sheriff department chalked the call up as a crazy Indian woman wanting to chase a ghost into the woods. They never came. That was the mindset of the day. A week later, the man was found by family members and some with local men. His tongue and eyes were missing. His feet were ripped open to the bones from walking on down trees and sharp rocks. The holy man was brought to cleanse the body in case any part of the W's mark that could still be attached may not affect others. The man was buried in an unmarked grave by holy and medicine men. His body was covered with sage, sweet grass, and tobacco so that the W wouldn't come and dig him up and take him away. Not even the family of the man knew where he was buried for a fear the W would look into their minds and find his resting place. This was not done just for the family's sake, but the sake for all of the community. Once it was done, it is never to be spoken about, especially when the sun goes down. You're not even to think of the man or what had transpired for fear the W will hear those thoughts in the night. Many of the early settlers, the French and the English, thought these warnings of the W were created to scare them away, but soon learned otherwise. The first written accounts of the W were by the French, then the English. All the accounts and stories about the W were first reported by these settlers, not the tribes. The tribes aren't foolish enough to write anything about the evil itself, though the stories made good bedtime reading to those back in Europe. Nonetheless, the First Nations are very uneasy talking about the subject, and I could see the concern in Nukomis's face when I asked her to translate the passage concerning this being. As Mr. Ash wrote, quote, sometimes you must learn, then forget what you learned to protect your spirit. In other words, now you know, don't ask again. A one-time lesson is all that's needed. But when it comes to understanding the other beings on this earth, folks tend to run and discover it. Some things are better left alone. There is a passage Mr. Ash wrote about a time visiting his Ottawa cousins near Lake Michigan and witnessing a flying canoe. And from this flying canoe, a being came from a purple/reddish light and ran into the woods on shore. They knew it was evil. They could feel it. They gathered their things and ran back to his cousin's truck, and Mr. Ash wrote, at Deke's, his cousin's nickname, home, we purified ourselves and had a ceremony to leave what we saw at the shore. We smudged and offered tobacco to the Great Spirit for protection and knowledge. What we saw was blacker than night and moved like the wind. It had legs, but they didn't move. It seemed to glide over the ground. The star people brought it with them. Let's hope they take it away. Bracket, side note, many of the in Michigan and Wisconsin speak of flying canoes for hundreds of years. UFO sightings around Lake Michigan described a long cylinder-like shaped craft that is seen over the lake and disappearing into the water. They appear as a white lit cigar, making absolutely no noise and disappearing out of sight, whether in the water or straight up. It's a common description of these craft around the Great Lakes. So, in describing this craft, the ancestral Anishinaabe described them as flying canoes. From the bottom is long and the shape resembles a canoe against the sky. There are many accounts of these type of craft still being reported and not reported today. In years past, the government would portray the lights and craft to misidentified. Military aircraft from K.I. Sawyer Air Force Base near the city of Marquette. Well, that's fine and dandy, but these craft are still seen today, and K.I. Sawyer has been closed since 1995. I haven't heard their official wording of what is being seen today, but knowing our government, they'll try telling us we're all suffering from the emissions of electric vehicles and expect us to believe it. I better stop this email here, or I'm going to write that book I said I would never attempt. I'll be sending more very soon. I barely scraped the surface of what I've learned this past winter. Before I end, I want to explain why Sabe is part of the 7 grandfathers' teachings. The word for honesty is. Now, don't try to say it at first. Glance over to the pronunciation first or you'll cramp your tongue. Well, alright, here we go. I'll look at the pronunciation. Gwe Yukwa Diziwin. Gwe Yukwa Diziwin. Gwe Yukwa Diziwin. Gwayakwadiziwin. Gwe Yukwa Diziwin. There are many translations, but all mean the same thing, to live a good life. One of the translations, when this word is broken down into smaller words, is comprised of, is, quote, to walk a straight path, end quote. Now, who do we know walks in a straight path naturally? Sabe. This why Sabe is the representative of honesty in the 7 grandfathers' teachings. Every being that represents the principles of the 7 grandfathers' teachings were chosen by their attributes. To walk a straight path was given to the being the Anishinaabe knew well. Well, this will do it for now. Much more to come. Take care, Steve, and give that bear cub you call Ruby a pet for me. And just some last word of caution. Number 1, never whistle in the woods at night. Number 2, never follow a light through the woods at night. Number 3, never go searching for someone who knows you're there. Always tell these people your intentions entering the woods. They know them already, but coming from you is a sign of respect. You don't have to yell it through the woods either. In a normal tone of voice, say your intentions. They will hear and they will know. I'm off to take my daughter to physical therapy thanks to the serum of unknown origin. She's back to nearly 80%. She's still learning to use her hand again. It's going to be a long road, but there's nothing going to stop her. All the best to everyone. Mitakuye. 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 Owasin. Mitakuye Owasin. All my relations. I can't remember if you said to use your name or not. I don't think so in the beginning, because I don't think I have yet, have I? Make sure you tell me if it's okay next time, alright, man? But as usual, absolute respect and appreciation for your generous time and your generous sharing, and of course Mr. Ash and his knowledge and his wisdom that he's passing on to the people. It's frickin' gold, right? It's treasure. It's a golden treasure. What are you going to do with the knowledge now, you guys, right? It's amazing. It's funny, is the education system, and when you said earlier in the email about students questioning and getting reprimanded for that. It's, I don't know how, but I knew it a long time ago, was the fact that repeat after me and memorize this and you'll pass. Really? Ram it up your ass. This is what I learned before I even got out of school. Funny, isn't it? Ram it right up there. It's not the correct path. It wasn't for me, obviously. And the path I chose worked out, obviously. And it's getting better, I hope. But I need more knowledge. I need more real, true knowledge from all the elders, and from all the eyewitnesses. I need as much knowledge as I can get. Why? I haven't a clue. Right? I don't know why. I haven't a clue. How did I end up like this? How did I end up like this? I don't know. I don't know. Why can't I just be happy to pay the bills, have food in the fridge, and be able to go on hunting and fishing trips? I don't know. Why am I in the position of being a messenger? I don't know. Why am I a stubborn son of a bitch that won't stop at all costs and pushes back in the face of, quote, authority, end quote? I don't know. But I'm going with it. I can't stop myself. It's just the way it is. And that's the way it is with a lot of you out there too. But anyway, I think we'll probably end it at that, and we'll dedicate this entire time to Mr. Ash and his diaries, and the generous, kind man who goes out of his way to learn it all thoroughly before sending it our way. And we are definitely looking forward to hearing more and learning more from you in the near future. What an interesting winter that must have been, man. Anyway, I got sawdust and gravel coming out of my eyeballs still. I hit the chainsaw today for a couple hours. I think I split a cord in a bit today anyway. And I'm going to get on with it, and then I'll be back again, because you can't stop me.